Another week brings another nail biter. How's everybody doing? I'm Jay Elson, and this is Coyote Corner. South Dakota seems to have developed a bit of a penchant for close games. In 4 of the Coyotes' first 5 contests against FCS opponents, and each of their wins this season, the margin of victory has been exactly 3 points. Saturday, we saw that stat play out yet again against Illinois State. South Dakota came in winless in 5 tries against the Redbirds, including last year's 46-0 drubbing in Normal. This one didn't go anything like that one, although ISU did find the end zone first. James Robinson scampers 17 yards for the touchdown, 7-3 visitors. Austin Simmons didn't start the game for USD, but he made an immediate impact. Beautiful deep ball to Tristan Ducker, freshman to freshman, for 54 yards to set up first and goal. Coyotes. Michael Frederick takes it from there. First score of the season for him, and South Dakota is back on top. They'd strike again on their next possession. Simmons, a 15-yard strike to Riley Donovan. High fives all around. 17-7 Coyotes after 1. USD adds to its advantage in the second after a Jacob Warner interception. Simmons delivers another bullseye. Great pitch and catch to Takari Carpenter, 26 yards to make it 24-7. Illinois State rallies before the half. DeMarco Corbin caps a 10-point swing that brought the Redbirds back within 7 at the break. Corbin and company would threaten again early in the third, but a huge play by the defense. Jake Lair gets the strip. Yotes recover at their own 6-yard line, so the Redbirds get nothing. That led to a 39-yard field goal from Miles Bergner, his second of the day, and it's 27-17. Fast forward to the fourth. ISU on the move again. Corbin breaks free, but check out the hustle from Marcello Judge. The true freshman chases him down and knocks the ball loose. Alex Coker jumps on it in the end zone. So again, the Coyotes keep the Redbirds off the scoreboard. Huge play there, and it became even bigger later on. Jake Colby with a quick pass to Christian Gibbs. He slips a couple of tackles, and there he goes. 42 yards for the touchdown to cut the deficit to 3. But that's as close as Illinois State would get. The Coyotes did just enough down the stretch to close this one out, and they hang on to win it 27-24. Austin Simmons completed 13 of 30 passes for 205 yards and 2 touchdowns, though all but 74 of that came in the first half. Most of the numbers actually favored Illinois State. They outgained the Coyotes 474 to 370, but it was the turnover battle that again played the biggest role in the outcome.
Momentum is really a non-factor. I think we've learned that over these few games. Momentum, it's just a mental thing, and we've come out on top a good part of the time.
Key thing is you can't take anything for granted. Got to keep rolling. Focus on the next game. Celebrate a win, but next day moves on and you just start focusing on the next week. So, of course, it feels good, but I think it's safe to say that we're not done yet, attitude-wise.
Austin Simmons made the most of his first extended action. Find out how the head coach felt about his young quarterback's performance when we come back.
Coyote Corner on Midco Sports Network is presented by Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, Dakota Land Honda, and your Core Trust Bank.
Well, with Saturday's win over Illinois State, South Dakota has now matched its best start in the Missouri Valley Football Conference at 3-1. And joining us now to talk a little bit more about his team's most recent victory is head coach of the Coyotes, Bob Nielsen. Bob, let's start with the situation at quarterback. Chris Traveler, of course, not able to play on Saturday due to the concussion he sustained at Indiana State. So I've got a two-part question for you here. First, how close was he to being ready? And then what was the plan going forward once you realized he wasn't able to go?
Yeah, we, Chris practiced during the week. As we got to the end of the week, we're always going to err on the side of caution with those types of injuries, and just felt that, he wasn't ready to go. And we had worked the majority of the reps during the week with Ryan Sager and Austin Simmons. Our plan going into the game was to play them both. We're going to start Ryan but we felt that playing them both was going to give us the best chance to be successful.
Ryan did get the start. He's played a lot of football in his career here, so you knew what you were going to get with him. But that was not necessarily the case with Austin Simmons. Outside of a few snaps earlier in the season, this was really going to be his first extended action at the collegiate level. So what were your expectations for him going into this game?
Well, we've having seen him in practice now for the 15 days that we had in the spring, plus all the time that we had in fall camp and up to this point. We felt very good about his ability to make plays. He's a guy that's extremely athletic. The thing that he lacks is experience, and the only way you're going to get that is to get on the field and actually do it. And what I was really pleased with is the way that he managed the game. He made some mistakes, but at the same time he made a couple of plays that you can see is the kind of athlete that he is and the kind of playmaker that he can be.
He got off to a fantastic start, led the team to touchdowns on each of his first 2 series. How valuable is a start like that for a young player?
Well, really valuable. The ability to come out and have some immediate success not only gains confidence for him, but it also gains that kind of sense of confidence from his teammates. And we've got 3 guys now that I think our team would be very confident with playing that position and trying to win football games with.
Of course, as the game went on, because Austin played so well, it kind of dictated the way you were going to do it, right? I mean, he got the hot hand, and you kind of stuck with him from that point.
We've going into the game. Our plan was that if somebody got a hot hand, we'd go with them more, and we rotated Ryan a little bit in specific situations, or if we felt we needed to communicate something with Austin. But he played well. He played well. He missed a few throws there in the fourth quarter that could have been big, but. He did what we needed him to do to be successful.
Simmons at the controls, able to build a 24-7 second quarter lead. But the late stages of the first half belong to Illinois State. The Redbirds put up 10 points in just over 2 minutes to get right back in the game before halftime. We talked last week about kind of being surprised that this team was 1-3 in the league coming in, and we saw a little bit of that there.
They're a really good football team. They've got good players at every position, offensively and defensively, and they took advantage of some good field position on those last 2 drives, and we knew they'd come, take a run at us coming back, and that's where that run really was.
It was 24-17 at the half. Illinois State then carried that momentum into the second half, but they got very little to show for it. Twice your defense extinguished the Redbirds' threat by forcing a turnover. The first of those led to a field goal that proved to be the game-winning score, and the second was one of the better hustle plays I've seen in quite some time. What's it like as a coach to see a maximum effort play like that go your way, and just to see your guys laying it all out on the field?
Well, that's what you want to see. You want to see your team play hard. You want to see your team never give up, and that's a perfect example of a play where he was well on his way to the end zone, and Marcello Judge got caught up with him and stripped the football, and it goes from being 6 points for them to our ball at the 20-yard line.
Yeah, Danny Rambo in on that play as well. He came from the other side of the field to get in front of the runner and help slow him up, maybe enough for Marcello to make that strip, but a huge play. And plays like that were especially important because the offense had hit a pretty literal wall in the second half, particularly on the ground. So what specifically were the Redbirds doing to make the running game so slow in that second half?
Well, late in the game, they needed to get the ball back, and they were playing on the safeties low, moving the front, and trying to put more people in the box than we could block. So at that point in time, we needed to try to take a shot and see if we couldn't make a big play against man-to-man coverage on the perimeter, and we took a few of those. Unfortunately, we didn't complete those. We were 0 for 7 throwing the football in the fourth quarter. That's something that we've got to be able to make a play at a critical time like that.
And it's one of those. The plays were there, and is it timing at all? Because Austin's maybe not quite on the same page yet with the receivers.
I think the more he plays, obviously, the more opportunity he has to make those throws, the better the chance of us completing them. He was under pressure a little bit at times. Where if we could have held maybe another fraction of a second, allows him a chance to deliver the football. And some of it was we didn't get great routes at times by our receivers. So I think it's a combination of things and things that we can be better at.
Well, you held on. That's what matters, right? And,
Yep.
and let's be frank, if it wasn't close at this point, it probably wouldn't feel quite right, would it?
Well, we're getting used to 3-point scoring margins, I know, and like I told people, that's a step forward because we didn't play in double overtime, I think.
Yeah,
so
right.
we'll work on the point differential here as we move down the road.
All right, well, congrats on another big win for you, Bob. Thanks again for your time this week.
My pleasure.
All right, well, now that we've heard from the head coach, time for a little extra Fields vision. Midco SN analyst Andre Fields going to give us his perspective on Saturday's win over the Redbirds after this. The quarterback situation at South Dakota is something we've been watching very closely since the start of fall camp, and yet again this past weekend, the guys that play that position gave the Kyle coaching staff a lot to be excited about. For more on that and the rest of the details that contributed to USD's latest victory, we bring in Midco SN analyst Andre Fields. Andre, no question that the lead story this week was the arrival of Austin Simmons. We've heard so much about this guy since he first committed to the program a couple of years ago, but this was really our first chance to see him in an expanded role, and I think it's safe to say he made a very positive impression. And before we get into it, let's hear from him on what he had to say about that experience.
It was really exciting. I've been waiting a while to get a chance to play. Not ideally from injury. I'd like to have our guys out there for sure, but just trying to do my best to help the team win.
Now, he definitely helped the team win on Saturday, Andre, but how about you? You were in the stands. Right. What did you like most about what you saw out of the youngster?
Well, he did some of the things that we expected. We saw the big arm and we saw his athleticism, but I think that stood out most to me, Jay, was his poise. He was very poised in the pocket. He didn't put the ball in harm's way. He got the ball to the playmakers when he needed to. He didn't try to force things. And I think that was something that stood out to me most because he hasn't played a lot, obviously. He's a very young guy, but his poise seemed like he had a lot of experience. And he didn't do anything to put the ball, like I said, in harm's way, but he managed the game very well, and that was something positive for him.
Look at his numbers, 13 of 30, 205 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, just 5 of 16 for 74 yards in the second half. We can't expect perfection. I mean, the bottom line, the guy hasn't played a lot of football yet, at least not at this level. But, man, there were a lot of encouraging signs there in that first half where you think, whoa, the future is here a little bit, you know. I mean, and you don't want to put the cart before the horse, but still very positive stuff from number 3 on Saturday. Well, Simmons and the Coyotes did have success through the air, but they did not get a whole lot done on the ground. South Dakota finished with just 123 yards rushing. That was their second lowest total of the season. Illinois State completely sold out to stop the run. Basically dared the Coyotes to beat them over the top, which they did try to do, taking several deep shots down the stretch. Was this maybe a little of Simmons' inexperience, though? Because he did have guys open, he just missed them.
Yeah, I think some of it was inexperience, but some of it was Illinois State's defense. The inexperience came from the fact that he just had some overthrows, he had some underthrows when he had pressure in his face. And I think some of that will come when he's played more snaps. But yes, Illinois State did a lot to make sure that he was off balance when he made those throws and not throw them from a set position. So you get a little bit of inexperience, but you also got to give some Illinois State credit to the defense.
Now, on the other side of the ball, the Coyotes delivered some seriously clutch defense, particularly in the turnover department. Those 2 second-half takeaways might have been the single biggest keys to this victory.
Absolutely, because not only were they takeaways, but they were takeaways in the red zone when Illinois State was going in to score points. And I think those were game changers for the Coyote defense and for the whole team in general. I mean, you get turnovers, that's going to obviously energize your football team, but to get them in those spots was huge for USD, and then they were able to turn that momentum onto the other side of the ball and come out with the victory.
And we've seen it go the other direction a few times this year, but over the last couple of weeks, that tide has really started to turn in their favor. South Dakota also very good on third down. Illinois State just 3 of 14. Put that together with last week's effort against Indiana State. And the Coyotes' last 2 opponents now combined 4 for 29 on third down. And I tell you what, Andre, you continue to do that, you're going to continue to win football games.
Absolutely, Jay, because that's probably one of the biggest stats that defensive coordinators look at to see how their defense is doing. How are we doing on third down? Are we getting the ball back to our offense? Are we getting off the field? And for in 2 games to have a 14% third down percentage, that is huge. You continue that and you definitely going to win a lot of ball games.
And it's big in a game when you're outgained as significantly as they were, too. But Bob Nielsen said afterwards 2 things. You win turnovers, you win on third down. Doesn't matter how much you give up. Bend but don't break.
Exactly.
All right, well, finally, we did have some relatively big news that's come out in the aftermath of Saturday's win. That is that South Dakota is ranked for the first time since 2011 nationally. The Coyotes checked in number 25 in this week's FCS coaches poll. So let me ask you, Andre, as a football alum at USD, what does this mean to you?
Well, it just means that we're moving in the right direction. I mean, it's obviously going to help with momentum. It's going to help with playoff positioning, should that come into play later. It's going to help with recruiting. I mean, and it's a pat on the back. I can walk around and brag a little bit as an alum, as you said. But, yeah, definitely a positive sign, especially so early in Nielsen's tenure with USD.
All right, good stuff, Andre. Thanks for your time. We'll see you back here next week.
Absolutely.
All right, well, this next game has been circled on a lot of people's calendars since December. We're going to preview the highly anticipated matchup with Bob Nielsen's former team after this. And welcome back. Well, for head coaches, it's not often that the opponent is almost as familiar as your current team. But that's exactly where Bob Nielsen finds himself this week as he prepares to face off against his former team for the first time.
You always know players on the other team from recruiting. That's certainly different when you've had the opportunity to coach the majority of the young men that you're going to play against. And they're a great group of young men, a really good football program, and you know what they're going to get. They're going to play hard.
Nielsen, of course, came to the Coyotes after spending the previous 3 seasons at Western Illinois, where he led the Leathernecks to the playoffs last year. And while he understands why many are calling this a grudge match, he says it's important to remember the bigger picture.
A tremendous amount of respect for those young men and the work that they do and what that program is doing, and I would think there's probably the same. So I think the game is really more about where the programs are at. But it's a game that's very important to both teams right now.
Now, in terms of the Leathernecks, his ties to that program rank very low on his list of concerns. Success against them, he says, will hinge largely on a couple of key things.
We've got to move the ball with consistency and try to keep the ball in our possession. Those are some of the things that have not been good for us the last couple of weeks, particularly late in the games when we've had leads.
The Coyotes are 2-4 all-time against Western Illinois, with all 4 losses coming since the two became league rivals back in 2012. Kickoff at the Dakota Dome is scheduled for 2 p.m. Central, and you can find that game live right here on Midco Sports Network. Well, speaking of Saturday, if you're going to be in Vermilion for that game, be sure to stop by our annual Midco Sports Network pregame party, which will take place between 11:30 and 1:30 in the large tent next to the tennis courts just outside the front doors of the Dakota Dome. Fans are going to be treated to a complimentary Dome Dog meal and a very warm Midco SN stocking cap. You can also enter to win a set of Beats headphones. Again, that's the Midco SN pregame party coming up this Saturday prior to kickoff between Western Illinois and South Dakota. Well, life is full of tough choices, and while this South Dakota graduate assistant had options, the decision to pursue football was all about passion. Callie Stewart has his story next.
Coyote Corner on Midco Sports Network is presented by Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, Dakota Land Honda, and your Core Trust Bank.
And welcome back. Well, he might not have taken the traditional route to get into coaching, but USD football grad assistant Colby Felts definitely has the brain power academically and athletically to do whatever he sets his mind to. Kelly Stewart explains.
Colby Felts was a standout high school football player for Remsen Union, located in Remsen, Iowa. He was part of the winningest football class in school history with a combined record of 32-11, was a 3-time All-District performer and a 3-time district champion. Adding more to his gridiron greatness, Felts was a Wendy's Heisman State finalist and National Merit Scholar semifinalist. All of his accomplishments on the field hinted that he would play in college, but Felts had a different plan in mind.
Growing up, my mom worked in healthcare, and I thought, well, this was really something to be interested in, helping people out. Being a doctor is a really rewarding profession, and so I thought, okay, well, I want to go to USD. I love the school, love the medical school. I'm like, give up on sports for a little bit, grow up.
So Felts became a Coyote, but Remsen Union's class valedictorian still couldn't quite get away from football.
As soon as I told my high school coaches I wasn't going to play in college, they're like, all right, you're going to help us coach high school football. I really didn't get an option in that.
And that's where it all started. While attending school full-time, he helped coach his hometown team for 2 years.
After that second year, had one more year of undergrad left, and I'm like, well, see if I can help out the football team here. Went to Luke Gross' office, talked to him and said, hey, I'm here to help. He's like, we have a job in the video department. So I kind of got started here while I was finishing my undergrad. As long as I wasn't in the coach's way, not bugging him too much, that's kind of what I tried to do and learn as much as I could.
And with the brain power of Felts, learning quickly wasn't hard to do. But while his coaching life was picking up, he hadn't forgotten about the reason he came to USD in the first place.
Applied for medical school at the same time. I interviewed here in November, but I didn't find out until February of the next year. Well, in January, Coach Bashana, the old coach here, offered me the graduate assistant spot, and I didn't know about medical school yet, so said, well, this is a really unique opportunity for me. I didn't plan on it, but I'm going to hop on it, and found I got into medical school. I was able to defer the decision for a year, and then this past February I decided, well, I think I'm going to stick with coaching, so I ended up doing this.
That decision definitely turned out well for Felts, who had the opportunity to not only break down film, but coach the running backs as well. This year, he's the guy that's always 1 week ahead, prepping the coaches Sunday morning after game day for the next Saturday's opponent and making sure the scout team defense is on track. Though he's always preparing for the future, he still keeps a level head.
I mean, the next step for me is to try to win this game on Saturday. But in the future, I'd love to continue coaching football, wherever that may be, whatever school would give me an opportunity to do that, a full-time position. I'd love to. Eventually, I'd love to become a head coach. That's what I've always wanted to do when I get in this profession. I think for me personally, managing people, running an organization, that's what I think I could really excel in.
Even though Felts has a very bright career ahead of him in coaching, he said if it doesn't work out, he can always fall back on medical school, which isn't a bad backup plan by any means, Jay.
All right, thank you, Kelly. Well, that is our time for this week. For Kelly Stewart, I'm Jay Elson. We'll see you back here next Wednesday night for another episode of Coyote Corner.